All right, so again, welcome everyone. Hello, we are going to get started. We're so glad you're joining us today. Our team is really excited to keep this project moving by finalizing a concept plan for this new park, as well as a name. My name is Liana. I work in community engagement here at THPRD, and I'll be facilitating this virtual meeting tonight. We also have with us Nicole Paulsen. She's our project manager. Wave hi, Nicole. Thank you. She is really the best contact for this project. She's going to get into a presentation soon. We also have Tim Bonin, who's our manager of design and development with us, as well as Catherine, our consultant on this project. And each one of them will introduce themselves a bit more as they take the virtual floor. First, before we jump into our presentation, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all the community members who are joining us tonight, and also on YouTube later. So whether that's right now or later on YouTube, we deeply appreciate your engagement and your time here tonight. Like I say, soon Nicole will be the project manager will be providing us with a presentation on the concept plan. During the presentation, if you have questions or comments, please share those by typing them into the chat using the chat feature. You can type those in anytime, and we'll make time to answer those questions as we go. If for some reason we know we're going to address the topic you're asking about later in the presentation, we may wait until that point in the presentation. We may have visuals or something that can help us answer that question. So if we don't get to your question right away, know that it is in the queue. If for some reason we don't have an answer for you today, we'll be happy to follow up with you after this meeting. If you're willing to share your email directly to us in the chat, you can address it directly to myself, Liana, in the chat, or you can always reach out to us through the webpage. I also want to announce that we're recording this meeting, and we will be sharing it with the community on the project webpage to provide another avenue for everyone in our community to learn about the project. If you know anyone who's interested, we will also have a Spanish presentation posted on the webpage as well soon. We are going to hold that on the evening of Tuesday, December 13th at 6 p.m. and then post that on YouTube. So that'll be a presentation coming up as well. Exact same presentation, just interpreted and translated into Spanish. A couple things for you. I've put in the chat the webpage for this particular project if you want to reference that anytime or share it with others in the neighborhood. I also put Nicole Paulsen's email in the chat. So in case you ever want to reach out to her and ask questions or share concerns beyond this meeting, you can do that. And then just one last note before we get started. I wanted to mention that we are keeping cameras and microphones off for this meeting, only to help us best ensure that this meeting is safe and friendly for all ages. All right, without further ado, I think I will turn it over to you, Nicole, to introduce yourself and jump into the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Liana, so much. Welcome, everybody. This is a great turnout for a virtual meeting, and we are excited that folks will be able to view it on YouTube later and respond if they have any questions or feedback. So I'm going to go into a short presentation. We'll also look at how we got to the concept plan, and then we'll also have our design consultant talk a little bit more in depth about the concept plan in general, as well as go over community engagement schedule, project timeline, and the naming of the new CAPULIN Park. Okay. So first, I wanted to start off with our overarching community vision action plan. And this is a long-term guiding vision that we worked very hard on. It's a regional award-winning community engagement plan. We did a lot of outreach between fall of 2018 and 2020. We realized that this is a document that really helps bring community ideas to life. And with this document, it was formed from all of the feedback that we heard from over 10,500 community members. We had public task force teams, So our decision-making is always aimed at balancing resources and needs across the district, as well as looking at these vision action goal areas that help us guide our concept and design planning process. I will say that it's a beautifully written, very large document. Liana, maybe I'll put you on the spot here if you want to find a link to the vision action plan. If anybody has any more interest in reviewing that document, we can put that link in the chat. Out of that feedback that we received over those couple of years, the task force that we formed, as well as our inventory analysis within our district, we came up with 4 goal areas that we really want to ensure that we're incorporating into our programming, all the facets of how the park district serves the community. And so those 4 areas, one of them being the welcome and inclusive, where ideas are centered on building community and expanding the role of THPRD in people's lives. Play for everyone, realizing that while it might not be something or an amenity that resonates with you, you may have a lot of people in your community that it does resonate with. And so being able to have that play for everyone, as well as being accessible and safe, make it so that we can create designs that really tailor to people of all different communities. We are also very interested as a district in preserving natural spaces, whether that be preserving land to make into parks in the future, or preserving actual natural spaces that focus on resources, wetlands, woods, forests. So those are the 4 goal areas. So as we dive into our specific park right here, if you are not super familiar with where it's located, this is a vicinity map. So this neighborhood park is along Southwest Pointer Road. The inner ring represents a half-mile radius, or roughly a 10-minute walk, while the outer ring highlights a 1-mile radius around the park. It could roughly be about a 15 to 20-minute walk. Within that 1-mile radius, we do have several schools, including West Sylvan Middle School and Ridgewood Elementary School. I think Raleigh Swim Center and Raleigh Park to the south, while they have a large barrier with Canyon Lane or Canyon Road, excuse me, they are within that 1-mile radius. So the site is surrounded, as I mentioned, by some large pedestrian barriers, with Highway 26 to the north, Walker Road to the west, and Canyon Road to the south. There are along Canyon Road, there are local restaurants, parks, trails. On the frontage of Pointer Road, a major pedestrian route is shown, which is in that light blue line that's got kind of dots, a dotted light blue line. Let's see if I can throw my cursor on there. Hopefully you can see that. Pathway is ODOT owned, but also Pointer Road is a major connection and pedestrian route for that system. And so we wanted to highlight the importance of that. And that particular pathway takes you, I believe, all the way to Sunset Transit Center, which is a large commuter transportation, alternative transportation commuting system. So here, this aerial is a bird's eye view of the site, gives you more of that aerial. This future park site is approximately 2 acres with a scattering of trees throughout the site. A single family home on the property was removed some time ago. And this aerial view of the site highlights really its unique characteristic. It's got what I like to call a quirky shape. I am very fond of this particular park, and I'm so excited of what we're able to provide for the community with the shape that it holds. It is nestled amongst some homes, and we've got a main entry access on Pointer Road. And then we also have this little kind of tail that you see, which is would be a kind of a neighborhood pedestrian access for folks south of the site to get to the park. Both of these maps are on our website in English and Spanish. And so if there's anybody that you would know might be interested in these, please feel free to send those along. If you haven't been out to the site, It is largely undeveloped. However, these photos really highlight its beauty, its openness, its shape, and really provide an opportunity to see that it's got a kind of a blank slate to work with and to really refine and to make a gem for the community. So, as a refresher, I wanted to go over the concept planning that we did up until this point. So to develop this preliminary concept plan, we had a lot of fun in April, celebrating the park and enjoying a dry while soggy coffee date with the community where folks were able to come out and get coffee and some sweet treats. A little over 150 people, I believe, attended that event. So it was very well attended. And in tandem with that event, we also had a survey that went out where we received results from for people that couldn't attend the event. And from that event and the survey, this graphic really highlights kind of what we had heard out of that event. And the purpose of that event was to gain an understanding of what types of activities the community would like to see in the area, and what type of theme would be of interest, how the space might be used for the community. And so some of the items that you can see, the community seemed very excited about opportunities to gather with friends and family, community members, neighbors. Included with that is play opportunities, as well as places to rest, relax, and meditate. Amenities and comforts that we heard from folks were to have an open lawn space where it could be a multi-use space, shaded space with trees or shelters, pathways, and connectivity, as well as nature and water play. And what we heard with park activities and how to use the park space were largely consistent with the theming ideas that we heard, which were more natural in nature, more natural themes to the park, including looking at pollinator plants, birds, planting, rooting plants, flowers, gardens. So it was a really great base to start from as we moved forward with our concept planning. With this input, the survey and the feedback that we heard, our design consultants were able to create these bubble diagrams that you see here. And these were to illustrate a variety of activities on the site. And we presented this at our second workshop, which was held in October. Included with that was a survey for folks that also were unable to attend so that they could provide comments and feedback as well. The event was a Parktober event held on October 13th at the West Sylvan Middle School. We hosted a carnival type atmosphere with games and crafts, and received quite a lot of comments from the survey as well as at the workshop. There were approximately 80 people who actually came to that workshop, which was great considering I think at that time daylight was getting shorter and shorter. So through that feedback, we heard the most request for option C. So option A had a more simplistic approach. Option B had a little bit more play opportunity. And then option C had the most play and amenity opportunity. All three of these sites had gathering spaces, which would include items like benches, shelters, entry plazas, and then all of them had an open space component as well. So let's see here. And here is an image of the image of what we heard, Post-it notes that we heard. We did a dot exercise, and also heard survey results and comments. Let's see. So we moved. Currently, right now, we are offering a community survey, which is open until December 18th. So we will wait to hear back from that. Additional community engagement efforts will include another secondary survey that's a little bit more tied into the actual design of the play equipment and what you might see in there, what maybe types of colors or actual amenities you would want in the play equipment area. Okay. So with all of the information that we received from our first 2 workshops and the surveys, we moved forward with balancing the community's desires to have a variety of amenities while also and play while also keeping the site natural and using the theme of relaxing or restful, and as well as hearing feedback from our internal design team, which is working with our programming, our maintenance crews, our safety and security crews. So that helped really guide the design of the process, or guide the process in the design as well. And there are also site considerations to note that that we had to look at as we began this design, which was slope, the health of the existing trees, access along Pointer Road, the smaller access along Canyon Lane, parking. We typically, neighborhood parks do not have parking included in the design. However, this site is a bit unique in that Pointer Road, North Canyon Lane have parking. They have no parking on those streets, and there's limited street connectivity. And with Pointer Road being a heavily utilized bike path, we thought that THPRD should show a small parking area off of Pointer Road, which is really, if you can see my cursor, Liana, can you thumbs up? Can you see my cursor? Great. There are shown 3 parking spaces in the event that somebody does drive to the park. They are shown currently in the ODOT right-of-way. So Oregon Department of Transportation actually owns this area. We are working very closely with them to see if they can allow us to utilize that space in the property for parking area. If not, those spaces might shift within the design. So at this time, I feel like I threw out a lot of information. I know that a lot of folks are waiting to get into the actual heavy lifting of the design and how that was created. So I am now going to turn the presentation over to Catherine to discuss the concept plan in more detail.
Good evening. Welcome to the meeting, everyone. My name is Catherine. I'm a landscape architect with Lango Hansen Landscape Architects, and been working on this project with the THPRD team since, I guess about the middle of the year or so. Very excited to be working on this. It's a lovely property, and I can't wait to see it developed. So let's hope this works. Let's see. There we go. Oop. Okay. So looking at the park, there's a number of things we have to consider. Obviously, one is circulation, pathways. Everybody in every single option, people wanted pathways. And loop pathways in particular to circulate in and through the park. So you can see here, we kind of have one major pathway that runs through the park, and then a kind of more sinuous pathway that loops through the southern part of the park, as well as one little pathway that goes around this little play area down here that would probably be a soft surface path, like a gravel path or something similar. These other pathways will all be ADA accessible, paved concrete paths. So they'll be good for all kinds of people to access the park. Another thing we heard, this was a main part of the second option that we presented, was to have some gleaning garden, some free to pick berries or fruit trees. And a lot of people expressed some interest in that. So what we've done here is included some areas for particularly berry bushes, and then also some fruiting cherry trees to go with the new name for the park. So those will be up here, located close to both close to the shelter and close to the picnic area and parking. So it's easily accessible. Third thing we heard was that people did want some shelter. And what we heard from the THPRD security was that they want to make sure that they can see the shelter from Pointer Road. So we ended up locating it here. So it's a little farther into the site, not close to the traffic noise of 26, but also close to the play area so that, you know, if you're having a picnic and you're there with your kids, they can play in the play area and you can see them from the shelter and from the picnic tables in the shelter. We have not settled on a specific design for the shelter, but these are some examples of what we might use in this case. We also had a lot of interest in water play. And some people, I think some people were thinking of this as maybe a splash pad or something. And I think that doesn't really, that might be too much of a draw for a park of this size, but kids still like water. And so we have there are some different options for providing water play, such as this kind of raised ADA accessible water table that kids can manipulate dams and such to choose where the water goes. Or we could do one in the ground similar to this. And that would be located right here, close to the shelter. Play equipment. Nicole mentioned that we have not chosen specific play equipment yet. That will be part of another upcoming public outreach in the spring. But our main play area will be right here, kind of in the heart of the park. And it will be a mix of equipment. You know, we could have some swings, we could have some spinners, we could have some slides, climbing equipment. And what shape and what form those takes is still up in the air, but that will be a main part of our upcoming design phase. And then as part of the nature play or nature component of the park, there was interest in nature play area and sort of nature exploration area. So what we could do is a nature play area similar kind of down in this area, similar to what you're shown here. I don't know if any of you have been to Eastmoreland Park off McLaughlin, but they have a very large, nice nature play area, you know, with logs and things and sticks that kids can build their own forts out of and things like that. So those might be options here. But then we could also have some more, you know, kind of like hidden trail kind of curated areas that we might seek out little things through this area of the woods. And then a lot of people want an open lawn. And so we've set aside the main part of the south area of the site for an open lawn. And this is surrounded by pathways and planting. So it should be a very nice spot. And just a couple other things I just wanted to mention as far as we didn't discuss planting, but we're going to provide generous buffers on all sides of the park adjacent to properties with evergreen shrubs to help provide privacy. And then another layer of native and pollinator shrubs that's in the lighter green here that will also help provide some buffer and then provide a lot more of that kind of natural feeling that people have asked for in the park. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Nicole.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. I get excited seeing the design and moving north to south and seeing how it's all going to play out. So for the project timeline, currently, we are in the this blue, or now yellow highlighted box, which is the community engagement. Spring of 22 we started, and we'll look to finish up here in February of 2023. We will go from here to refine the plan a little bit more. And then we'll look to go to the board of directors for approval of the concept plan in February. Based on the feedback we hear today via email through the survey, we'll refine that plan. And then after it's approved by the board, should it be, we will spend quite a bit of time in our permitting, gathering our permits and doing our design work through different agencies and jurisdictions where we'll be required to get permitting. And then winter of 2024, so that's about December 2024 through summer 2025 is when we will look at construction of the site. And with that, Liana, I am going to hand the presentation over to you. If you want to let me know when to change the slide, I'm happy to do so.
That sounds great. Thanks, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
Hi again, everyone. I am happy to help talk a little bit about the name of this park that we've put out, and just give you a little bit of background of how we came up with that name and why we might be using it for this site. So to kind of back out a little bit, kind of big picture, how we name parks generally at the Parks District right now is we really focus on names. So names that aim for equity and representation of diverse communities in our park names and trail names. We focus on underrepresented communities and experiences, because when we looked across the whole of all of our different parks, we found that we were really missing representation. And so now we're really focusing on getting there, on very intentional inclusive outreach to local leaders and organizations is how we come up with these names. So we work very closely with local nonprofits and leaders to determine what are the best names for parks. And we work specifically with cultural organizations. And the intent here is to ensure that we are not participating in cultural misappropriation or any kind of performative action, is that we're working in authentic partnership with cultural organizations. And so this engagement, what it really looked like when we work with different organizations here in the community, it looks like in-depth discussions, working through historical and photographic archives with researchers that we worked with. And really the intent is to honor and reflect, again, the diverse experiences and identities, and to cultivate a sense of welcome, not only to those of us who have traditionally felt welcome in parks, but to everyone in our community. All right, you can take it to the next slide here, Nicole. And so when we talk about this name, CAPULIN Park, this park is part of that process. This park name is part of that process to really find representation here in something new. So the meaning of this name, CAPULIN, it's as many of you might have seen on the survey or on the webpage, that is a slang term for cherry used by the bracero workers picking bean cherries in the Pacific Northwest, including here in this area. Bracero refers to the people of Mexico who came to the US as seasonal agricultural workers in the early and mid 1900s. The US government started the Bracero program in response to growers' concerns that in the world wars would result in shortage of labor, agricultural shortages in agricultural jobs. So the name was identified through a very intentional process, again, to advance equity by reflecting diverse communities and experiences in our park names, to honor the collective history and shine a light on marginalized people who helped create the community we live in and that we all enjoy and that we share today, and to honor the many contributions, specifically of the braceros in Oregon, the food they provided to our community, to this community, and the meaningful contributions of all all agricultural workers and their contributions specifically to our community. And then we see this opportunity, while we know that cherries were not a focus of the nursery that once existed on site, we see lots of opportunity, whether that's in interpretive signage or in the plants that we plant at the in the design, which will include cherry trees in the gleaning garden, to really highlight also potentially, there's this opportunity to highlight the garden nursery history that once existed on the site. So that's a lot of information about the name. I wanted to suggest, if anybody has questions about either our naming process or anything from the naming process to land acknowledgement and action and that work, I encourage you to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those questions. And I think we're done on this slide. I think we can go to the next one. So just to kind of wrap up this presentation a little bit before we leave a little bit of room for any questions. We want to encourage you all to continue to get your neighbors involved, learn more on the webpage. You can share this webpage with your neighbors and friends there in the neighborhood. If you have not already, feel free to check out the survey on the proposed concept plan and park name. I know a lot of you might have already done that. That's wonderful. So please do share that with your neighbors and friends in the area. That closes on December 18th. So have your responses in by then. And then, as I mentioned, share that survey out. We're trying to get it out as much as possible, social media, etc. And then I think that's it. I will also mention again, if there is a recording of this presentation, will be posted on the webpage. So what I will do is open up the floor for questions. Please feel free to add them in the chat. We'll look out for those and we're happy to field those as they come in. So again, just a reminder to ask questions. You just want to enter those into the chat and I'll be happy to read them out loud and share them with the group and see what we can provide answers to. And it doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat right now, but I'll wait just a minute in case anybody is starting to type. All right, well, I don't see any questions coming through. I hope that is, we do have one. What's the process for ODOT to approve or not approve the parking? So I'll read that one more time. What is the process for ODOT to approve or not approve the parking?
That is a really great question. ODOT has a lease and permit agreement that we can move through the process. We have just recently spoke with ODOT and it sounds like they have similar agreements. And what they mentioned was parking spaces similar to like under the bridges in Portland. There are spaces that are kind of leased out or agreed upon for use. And so we're going to be looking at going through that process with ODOT. I have no guarantee that it will be approved, but our initial conversations with them have been really promising. So I'm encouraged by it, that we will get to use the space.
Excellent. Thanks, Nicole. Also, a couple more questions. Why 3 parking spaces specifically?
3 parking spaces that's a great question. It was really the area in the space that we have. We have one ADA stall. It's kind of hard to see. I'm squinting my eyes. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a word ADA right there that does show an ADA stall with 2 standard parking spaces. We really wanted to just utilize the space that we had because neighborhood parks do not have parking. While we want to provide space should somebody drive to the site, we really do want to preserve this size of park as a neighborhood walkable site. I hope that answers your question.
All right, thanks, Nicole. Next
What,
question.
I'm sorry. One quick thing I will mention is sometimes in our neighborhood parks, when we have certain programming, that then will require a certain amount of parking stalls. Because this particular concept plan is pretty minimal in nature for amenities, open lawn and a play equipment and shelter, it wouldn't require or necessarily necessitate parking that you might see in a more programmed neighborhood park.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nicole. I think I'm going to stay on that topic. I will come back to, there are several questions in the chat, which I'll come back to the other two, but just to stay on the topic of parking, a follow-up question is, why does this park need parking at all? Did people specifically ask for parking for the park?
Yeah, this park does not necessarily need parking by the way of programming. And what I mean by that is kind of what I was alluding to earlier is when we look at the type of amenities that we're including in a park, there are certain amenities that would require parking, such as like a sports field. Some of our neighborhood parks are large enough to accommodate a sports field. And if we're programming that field, we want to make sure that there's available parking for people that we would be bringing into the site by way of programming. A play equipment and open lawn space don't generate that type of use, which is why this particular site would not necessarily need parking. But because there is Pointer Road is a bike pedestrian pathway, and there is no on-street parking along Pointer Road, and there is no on-street parking along Canyon Lane, we felt that should somebody drive to the site, there should be a place for them to, one, turn around and not utilize neighboring driveways. So being kind of respectful of the neighborhood, but also to make sure that there was a space should somebody choose to drive and use the amenities.
Thanks, Nicole. And I'm going to stay on that topic. I'm going to answer or ask one more question on that topic, and then we'll go to the next topic. The last follow-up question on that topic is, I think a kind of confirmation that we don't have amenities that require parking. Can we vote to eliminate it?
That's a great question. I suppose the way that this particular project was designed was to make sure that we're also not that we're not providing a space that is unusable if somebody were to drive. Maybe somebody who had any type of experiencing a disability. I know that Pointer Road is quite steep in nature, which is why an ADA stall is provided and some other ADA uses. I suppose, should we hear an overwhelming amount of comments that relate to not wanting the parking, that's something that we would discuss internally. All of the comments that we have here at this meeting, as well as with our survey, will be discussed through that process. So can I say that it couldn't be eliminated? I don't want to make that statement because it's always, there's an open discussion to be had.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Moving on to a different subject, will you be removing any existing trees? If so, can you illustrate where and why removal is needed?
I see that Catherine has already got her mute button off, so I am going to throw that question over to Catherine.
Yeah, so when we surveyed the site, we also had an arborist come out to the site and survey every single one of the existing trees on site, as well as some of the trees that were immediately adjacent, because we don't want to get into have any impacts on other people's trees. And what she found was that there are a lot of existing trees on site, which are it's an invasive European birch tree, which may have been, planted during while there was a nursery on site, but have spread. And those trees are both susceptible to disease and drought. And so she recommended removing all the European birches because they're not going to live long, and they're invasive. So there are a lot of trees on site which we are going to remove because of that, for that reason. Any trees that are not invasive and that are in good condition, we are going to do our best to save. So for instance, we've got some fairly nice maples here and here that we will save. There are a number of evergreens kind of in this area and at this end of the site that we'll save, and over here as well.
Catherine, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you want to
Oh,
request?
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
your cursor. Yep.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that.
That's right.
I forget that you can't see my cursor. So we have, these are the maples that we're going to save. Evergreens that we're going to save are up here, along here, and on this side.
I am so sorry. I'm still not
You're
seeing
not
the
stealing it?
cursor. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. There it is.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Okay, good to
Okay,
go. Sorry,
second
Gavin.
clip. Okay, third time. Sorry about this,
No
everyone.
worries.
These are our maples that we're going to save. These large evergreens and some smaller evergreens along here we're going to save, and some smaller evergreens over here as well. Pretty much everything else. Oh, there's also some evergreens over in this area. But almost everything else on site is the invasive birches. So we're going to take those out and replant with more drought tolerant shade trees that'll have a longer lifespan. I think that should do it.
All right. Thank you so much, Catherine.
I'm going to jump in and add to that, as well as those birch trees. I know for our maintenance crews tend to also lift up any infrastructure that we may put in, and they're fairly brittle. Maybe, and you've seen in some of the windstorms that there's a lot of debris or branches that fall, and so that would be it would be consistent with us looking at those kind of the health of the trees, the fragility of the tree, especially with the types of amenities that we would be putting near those trees.
Excellent. So let's go to the next question. I have a question that asks, I'm a little worried about the footpath to the park from Canyon Lane. It can be a bit dangerous of a crossing. Will a crosswalk be put there?
That is a very good question, and one that we don't quite have an answer to yet. We will work with the city of Beaverton to see what is required. Because there are no sidewalks along Canyon Lane, I am not sure, and we don't own property other than that small 20-foot. Can you see my cursor?
We can.
It's a very small width right here, and so we wouldn't be putting sidewalks on property that's not ours. Therefore, I'm not sure what the city of Beaverton would require us to do. So I do not have an answer to that at this time, but we would definitely be happy to keep you informed.
Excellent. Thank you, Nicole. All right. Next question I have, coming back a little bit to the parking question, and then we've got at least one more question we want to get to. This question asks, and I think it's in response kind of to the thread that we were talking about before regarding having a parking lot, is how do you keep people from parking along Pointer Road and Canyon Lane? And maybe part of that is the parking lot as part of the response. That would, like I say, that was
Yeah.
but I'll let you share anything else you want to share there, Nicole.
I know that this is putting a new park amenity is something that's really exciting for the community. And so maybe an initial thought is to drive. I think policing Pointer Road for parking in that respect. There is always our park patrol that can be contacted, and maybe we can put Park Patrol's phone number in the chat, Liana. They're available 8 a.m. to midnight every day. And they are a very good resource. While they may not be able to police parking along a right-of-way, maybe a presence might be able to help mitigate that. We also very much in our parks, especially neighborhood parks, really rely heavily on the eyes on the park. And really that if you live near the park or in the area, that would be you. We have park watch groups with that almost like adopt a park that have similar to our community gardens, where you have a steward of the community garden that then works with the groups. And we have some of those that are park watch, where there's a steward of the park and people can reach out to a steward who then has kind of this liaison with our park patrol. Parking along Pointer Road, I'm not sure if it's an issue now. And if it is, I don't know what is it related to other neighbors parking, you know, visiting a home or visiting their friend's house or a family's house. If that kind of stuff, I don't think we could detour that if it's already happening. But if it's due to park use, that's something that our park patrol could at least educate. I also think that over the course of time, people educating other people, as well as kind of the novelty of the park, may not see the type of parking along Pointer Road that is thought of right at this moment.
Great, thank you, Nicole. There are just a couple comments I want to read on that topic, and then I'm going to jump to another question about the green border hedge. Just a couple comments to mention. Just one comment says, nobody parks on Pointer Road now, and all future parking would be due to the new park. Hopefully, a different comment says, hopefully there won't be a lot of new vehicular traffic trying to park on Canyon or Pointer because of the park. Parking is not an issue on Pointer Road right now. So thank you all for sharing those comments.
Liana, can I make one follow-up comment on that? I really want to say that this community is very unique in that it has these large pedestrian barriers. And so I think that's why the concept and the idea of the design was to really stay minimal in concept, with just a play equipment and a loop path. I will just give you, we've built quite a few neighborhood parks with our bond, as well as grant funds and developer projects that are quite similar to this size and types of amenities. And we've seen we haven't seen an overwhelming draw for people driving to a park with maybe more minimal amenities, because and this is maybe just to give accolades to the park district, is we do work really hard to make sure that we have neighborhood parks in and around all areas of the district, so that people have walkability within their area to a multitude of sites, which really reduces the need for driving to maybe a site that is a little bit more secluded in a different area. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. That I would really encourage, if anybody wants to see a park that is fairly similar in concept or design, Roy Dancer Park is off of Murray and Allen. I think it's the sweetest, gorgeous little park that my kids have adored. But it's a really good visual representation if it's ever somewhere that you are interested in taking a venture out.
Thank you so much, Nicole. All right, I'm going to switch gears. We have someone who's been waiting very patiently on a question. The question is, how tall does the dark green border hedge grow, and what plants do you typically use for this?
I will let Catherine speak to that. One thing I do want to mention is that, especially in our design, in our buffering, and a lot of the landscaping that we do, Because of climate change, the district is really invested in making sure that our vegetation, a lot of it is drought tolerant. That way, we can ensure that we're not overwatering or overusing water in the area, and also providing native species that do well within our climate. So with that being said, I think the city of Beaverton also has language that refers to plantings because they have a similar approach as well. But from the actual details of the design of these plans, I'm going to throw it over to Catherine.
Yeah, we haven't selected specific plants yet, but off the top of my head, I would think, we could use like Pacific wax myrtle, for instance, or some varieties of California lilac. So, plants that'll get 6-8 feet tall, and dense evergreens that will, that are native or close to native in the case of the California lilacs. Well, there are some native to Oregon as well. But that's really what we try to focus on. And those are both drought tolerant species or varieties as well. So plants along of those kind of varieties are what we'd be looking for screening.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. Let's see. So I did get a couple more comments in the chat, just for those who might be on the phone. I'll read those out loud, as well as for the team. And I should mention all of the comments that you're sharing and questions we are recording, including in our community engagement process, and the input you share is important. So thank you for sharing. Let's see, one message says minimal means no parking. So kind of in reference to Nicole's earlier comments about a park being more minimal in regards to parking. Another comment says that parking may be advantageous for disabled access. And then another question, will the open area allow for off-leash dogs?
That is a great question. The park district does not offer off-leash dog hours in our parks at this time. Our Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee went through an extensive research outreach project that determined that at this time the park district would not have off-leash dog hours. So the short answer is no. That doesn't mean in the future that topic doesn't get brought back up or something changes, but at this time it wouldn't be. I will say, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Ridgewood View Park, which is, I'm going to flip back on these slides really quick. So close your eyes if you get a little dizzy going through some slides. Okay, so this, if you can see my cursor, this red image is the park site, the current park site right now along Pointer Road. If you were to take this blue trail all the way down to this green property right here, this is Ridgewood Park. We are currently looking and going through the permitting process with the city of Beaverton to install a dog park, or excuse me, a dog run at that location, and it should be built in the coming months, if that's an option for you.
And for those of you listening or interested in that project, I did put the web page for that particular project in the chat. So if you'd like to learn more or get to know that project, please visit that web page. We're happy to answer those questions in the future if you ever want to reach out to us. Another question in the chat we have is, are there plans to redo the retaining wall in the northeast part of the park that is indicated by the black line that you have there on the concept plan?
We are not at that stage yet in how the park will shape up and how the site might be utilized with ODOT. If that happens to be your property and you would like to talk more about that, I'm just making an assumption. But if it does, please feel free to reach out to us and we can have a conversation a little bit later about that and maybe how that is utilized. At this time, we don't have an exact plan of whether that would be removed, reconstructed, or graded out.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Thanks, these are excellent questions. It doesn't look like there are any other questions in the chat at this moment. So what we'll do, we'll just give it another minute. Feel free to add any more questions in the chat. While we're waiting on that minute, I'll go ahead and just remind folks of just a few things before we do end the meeting. I want to be sure to share that, of course, again, share the survey with your neighbors. The more input we get, the better. They can find it on the park project webpage, and soon we will post this recording of this meeting on YouTube. And we are also holding, as I mentioned, same presentation, just a presentation in Spanish that we'll post on YouTube as well for anybody you know who would like to watch that. And then if you have any questions that we aren't able to answer or weren't able to answer tonight, always reach out to us. We're so happy to answer those. It looks like in that time we don't have any new questions in the chat. So I'll take one last moment to say thank you to Nicole and Tim and Catherine Sheehy with Nico Hansen. You all have been wonderful to work on this project with. And I'll turn it over to Nicole for a final word.
There we go. I lost my screen. Thank you, Liana, for stating that we are nearing the end of our presentation. I also want to thank everyone for joining. I'm really excited for learning more about the community's interests and feedback for the design concept. I'm looking forward to moving forward and getting this park constructed, even though it is some time away. I'm happy to if there are any questions. I've met some neighbors out on site. I'm happy to have additional conversations, follow-up conversations. If there's any nuances or questions, please feel free to reach out and we can move forward. I'm really excited.
All right, thank you, everyone. Enjoy your evening and reach out to us if you have any questions. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.